Alright, so I'm going to do a knitting tutorial. And I buy a baby sport yarn. And I usually buy like the biggest thing because you can do it with one skein if you do that. Otherwise you're going to need a couple of them. Or if you buy the little teeny tiny ones, you're going to need several of those. Make sure it's nice and soft. You want needles that are hooked together. These are called in round. So these are, I think the pattern calls for a size 8. I'm not sure what size these are. It's coronavirus time, so I just grabbed some needles that I had that didn't have any project on it. And I'm making this for a friend who requested it. She has a new grandbaby being born. You only have to cast on 5 stitches at the beginning. So it's fairly easy. You don't need a whole lot of yarn to start with. So here's the end of my yarn. I'm going to make a slip knot. So to do that, you just make a loop. The string that's on the top goes underneath and through the loop, and then you pull like so. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So I've got about, I don't know, 6 inches of yarn. I make a loop. The yarn that's coming over the top of it is going to go behind and come up through that loop to form another loop. And then I'm going to pull the tail, and that forms a loose knot. So if I were to pull this tail, it's going to come right out. Boom, slip knot. Okay, so that's the first thing you do. Then you take your needle and you put it through and pull. Do not pull it tight. The thing with knitting is you want to have a loose tension, not terribly loose, but if you get it too tight, you're going to fight with it the whole time. Now you want to cast on 5 stitches. This is our first stitch, so I only have to cast on 4 more. To do that, here's my little short tail hanging in the front. Here is what's called the working yarn. That's what's attached to that big ball of yarn back there. Okay? I'm going to take these 2 fingers, and I'm a right-handed knitter. So I'm going to take these 2 fingers and put them together and put them in between these 2 pieces. And I'm going to grab all of that yarn with my left hand. And I'm going to do this. So I'm bringing the needle down. I'm going to go underneath the yarn that's on my thumb, around and back through thumb, and pull with my thumb. That gives me my first cast on. Okay, I'm going to do it again. Here's my short tail. Here's my working needle. I'll put these 2 fingers in here. Spread them apart. I'm going in front, hooking up. I'm going around that one and bringing that one through that loop. I drop it off my thumb and I use my thumb to pull it tight. Again, not too tight. I want it to be able to slide easily on here. So that's 3 stitches. Under, around, through. 4 stitches, last one. Under, you can't really see that, can you? Sorry. Under, around, through. Okay, you only need 5, so practice that until you get good at it, and then do you 5 stitches for a cast on. There are lots of different ways to cast on, and YouTube is full of casting on videos. That's just the way I learned how to do it. I was taught how to knit when I was in 5th grade, which was a really long time ago. A lady who worked at the church daycare where I stayed, her name was Granny Ryan. She was not my granny, but she was the old lady who works there, and she taught me how to knit. So that's the way she taught me how to cast on. So the needle that's in my right hand, now I turn it and I put it in my left hand. and I pick up the other needle. This tail is just going to stay out of my way. You're going to knit all 5 of those stitches, and I'm about to show you how to do that. You take this empty needle, and the idea is that all of these stitches are going to end up on this needle. So you take this empty needle, go in between the first 2 stitches, and you're going to put it inside that first stitch. Okay? And it spreads it out. So in between the first 2 stitches and into that loop of that first stitch. You take the working yarn, however you want to hold it. I hold mine like this because it helps me with my tension. But if you want to hold it like this, that's fine. Just make sure that you're holding it the whole time that you're working. Otherwise, you get really loose stitches and you don't want to do that. Okay? So into that stitch and make sure you cross to the back. You're going to take that working yarn, move tail, you're going to take that working yarn, you're going to go around the back needle and in between those 2 needles. And this is where you want to hold it kind of tight, but don't strangle it. Then you're going to bring that back needle through and you're going to catch that yarn that was in between, and you're going to cross in the front. And it's real important to cross all the way up like this. Don't just cross here. Cross all the way up, and then you're going to push that off, and you will have 1 stitch. And I'm constantly adjusting how I'm holding my thread. Okay, so front, in between 2 stitches, and into that stitch. Around the back, in between the 2 needles, pick up that yarn, slide it off. In between, and with the casting stitch, it's always a little tight to start with. It gets looser as you go. There's my 3rd stitch. Here's my 4th, in between, around, through, across, in between, around, through, across, and now you have 5 stitches. Okay, so that's just your basic knit stitch. Now for the pattern. Okay, it's constantly switching back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So your empty needle is always starts off in your right hand. If you have to put down your knitting for anything, always put it down at the end of a row, because when you pick it back up, wherever your working thread is, you know that's the needle that goes in your left hand. Okay, it's at the end of the row. All right, so now we're going to knit 3, and then I'm going to show you how to do a decorative stitch. Okay, and this is the pattern for the baby blanket. So you go in through that stitch, you go around, through, and cross, pull it off. In, around, through, cross, jump off. So now I have 3 stitches on my right needle. I'm going to take this working yarn and I'm going to take it from the back, and I'm going to go around the right needle and bring it to the front. Okay, so I'm taking it from the back, bringing it to the front. Then I'm going to knit the last 2 stitches. And what that's done, not only is it going to create a really cool decorative edge around the blanket, there's going to be like little decorative holes around the blanket, but it's also increased, you should have 6 stitches on your needle now. Okay, and that's your pattern. Okay, so you do this, you just keep going back and forth and back and forth. When you first start a row, that yarn is in the front. Go in, you're going to knit 3, Now when you get to this third one, that's the one that we yarned over. You see how big it is and it doesn't look like the rest of them? Don't panic. You just go right into that and knit it just like you would anything else. There's going to be a big hole there. That means you're doing it right. Okay. And you just keep doing this, keep doing this, keep doing this. Knit 3. And always yarn over after 3. I think I forgot to yarn over on that one. Find out in a minute. Little holes forming. Okay, so you have to knit about this far before you can start seeing the decorative element of those yarn overs. With your same pattern, you just knit 3, yarn over, and keep on knitting. And sometimes it gets so redundant that you think, you know, you get halfway down the row and you think, oh my God, did I do a yarn over? Oh my God, I can't remember. Did I do a yarn over? And looking at it from the front, if you're a really experienced knitter, you can figure out that, yeah, I did a yarn over. But if you're not really sure, turn it over and look at the back. And if you look at the back on these, you see these little humps at the bottom of these stitches? And then this one doesn't have one. That's my yarn over, okay? So if I know that after the 3rd stitch I'm supposed to have a yarn over there, if I have another stitch that looks exactly like that, I have not done the yarn over, and I'm not too late to go back and fix that. Now, to do that, let's pretend like I didn't do that. It's called tinking back. I don't know why it's called that, but it is. So if you need to go back, don't take your needles out, don't pull it out. If you need to just go back a few stitches, you see that hole right there? You're going to put this needle in there. That's picking that stitch back up that we just took off the needle. And you're going to slide your right needle out, and that's putting it back on there. Okay? So that's just taking little stitches off. So even if you can't tell if you did the yarn over, when you get here and go, oh yeah, look at there, there's a yarn over, I had it all the time, then you can just start knitting again. That's the easiest way to take a stitch out. I do know people that can like take their needles out and rip back a yard and pick stitches right back up. I am not that person. I do, however, have several friends that I can take my knitting to and say, please fix this for me. And not only will they rip it out and get my needles back in, they're so sweet that they actually knit me back to where I was. I love them. Holly and Lori, I'm talking about you. Okay, so you just keep on keeping on with this pattern. And it's going to take a while. As you can tell, we've started in a corner. So we're knitting a diagonal. So it's going to grow, 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 which is why you needed your round. So you're going to keep knitting until you have 207 stitches, which means occasionally you have to stop and count how many stitches you have. And then at that point, you're going to start decreasing. But I will make a second video that shows you how to do that. Y'all, bye.